I'm a former police officer and I know what an attack is. And me calling a man,
Yeah.
it's not an attack.
Well, Kathleen, for me, it's all about fairness. We literally want a level playing field, and that is not to exclude those people who identify as trans.
If we did create a third category, that would be so-called othering trans folks, and they should be included as the way they identify.
You're likely very familiar with the saga of April Hutchinson, the London, Ontario based powerlifter who was suspended for 2 years for having the utter temerity to complain about male powerlifters pretending to be female athletes and thereby invading powerlifting's women's division. And shockers, with men competing against women, the dudes were not only winning, but are continuing to set records in the process. But we're all supposed to pretend this is all okay in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unbelievable. Well, unfortunately, folks, April isn't the only female powerlifter being victimized by the powers that be who are running powerlifting in Canada. Indeed, my guest is Kathleen Thompson, a Victoria, BC-based powerlifter who has expressed similar concerns regarding fake females invading women's powerlifting. She recently sent a letter to Jennifer Luther Thomas, the president of the British Columbia Powerlifting Association. And even though Miss Thomas is also a female and also a powerlifter, the response that Kathleen received was downright shocking. Namely, shut your mouth, don't you dare misgender anyone. And oh, by the way, if you're thinking about quitting powerlifting, then goodbye and good riddance. Once again, astonishing. And joining me now from beautiful BC is Kathleen Thompson. Good day there, Kathleen.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. So, Kathleen, what struck me about the letter you received is that there was zero empathy for you and your fellow female powerlifters for rightfully being upset over these gender-bending grifters making a mockery of female powerlifting. And you would think that with the president of the BC Powerlifting Association being both female and a powerlifter herself, that she, more than anyone else, would understand your concerns, but nothing could be further from the truth. So, Kathleen, the question is, why is it that this particular woman is joining in on the war on women, at least the war on female athletes?
Well, in this case, David, I can really appreciate on one hand where the BC Powerlifting Union is at, and I have nothing but respect, for the most part, for the organization. I've been lifting in BC since the fall of 2021 was my first meet, and I was immediately made to feel really welcome. And I loved my new sport of choosing, and I've had nothing up until now. I've had nothing but positive experiences. And I have a lot of respect for Jen and the work she does. She's awesome, and she's really capable, and she's a friendly person who really loves powerlifting. And I can appreciate that she feels that she's bound by the BC Human Rights Code, which she outlined in her email to me. And she did take a lot of time, and her response was really thoughtful, and I really appreciated that. She explained the background of this in case I wasn't familiar with it, and a lot of time went into it. The one thing that I just really took offense with, and that it honestly made me pause, and I was upset, and I questioned myself for a moment, and I thought, no, I firmly believe I'm in the right side here, science and all, men and women. Was the wording, was part of the wording in the email where I'm being commanded to use certain language. And nobody, David, is going to compel my speech. And if I want to call a biological man a biological man, that's my right. I have science on my side, and I don't say those words to disrespect anybody, and I don't say those words to hate anybody. But I can also use the word cheater, because when a biological man is standing on the platform or in any sport next to a woman, they're cheating. And it was just those few lines in the email that really gave me pause, because I know Jen, and she's a really great person, and she's an excellent volunteer, and the hours she puts into the BC Powerlifting Union are incredible. But for me to be told what not to say, I thought, no, this is time for me to say something. And yeah, there was a line in the email that welcomed me if I felt fit to turn in my membership to the BC Powerlifting Union, and it was outlined how I could do that. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I do love the sport, and if my words and if speaking out for fairness for women lead to me being suspended, then so be it.
So you are taking the position that's been around for decades when it comes to sports, and I want to read directly what the president had to say to you. Quote, in BC, everyone has the right to define their gender identity and to express their gender. Trans people must be recognized and treated as the gender they live in and prefer to express. Not permitting athletes to compete in their preferred gender category is discriminatory under BC human rights law, end quote.
This is a thorny issue, and I'm simply expressing my opinion, like I said, and nobody can tell me not to do that. And I don't like being told that I can't, quote, misgender somebody. In my opinion, misgender is a make-up word. You're born male. And if I want to call you a biological male, that is simply based on science. Men are stronger than women. I
Yeah,
lift in the gym and I train with my husband, and he is stronger than me.
there you go. And the fact remains, no matter how much transitioning you do, the hormones, the surgery, you can't change your chromosomes. They stay the way they are. And so I dismiss that whole idea of having former males, so-called, becoming females and getting to play with the real biological females. But Kathleen, the other thing is Jennifer says discriminatory under BC human rights law, but BC, human rights commissions, human rights tribunals, those are kangaroo courts. They're unelected, non-accountable bodies. They issue decisions and edicts and so on, but it's not law. She cites that it's also under provincial and federal law they're basing their decision on, but she doesn't cite any provincial or federal laws. I think this is Jennifer just saying a bunch of these woke ivory tower bureaucrats are saying, if you're a guy who says he's a gal, then so be it. And you are a bigot, you are a transphobe if you dispute it. What say you, my friend?
I don't know where these where the reasoning is coming from. Well, I do know where the reasoning is coming from. As you pointed out, David, it's she's saying from the BC Human Rights Code and from Canadian law. And I also received a response to my email from the president of the Canadian Powerlifting Union, who cited similar things, that is Canadian law. But for people who don't know the sport of powerlifting, there's a number of different levels of competition. We have a local level and then a provincial level. And at those two levels, transgendered lifters are allowed to compete, no questions asked. But this is what I can't figure out, David. At the regional level and the national level, transgendered lifters are not allowed to compete. And a regional level means that's the road to nationals. Canada is divided into three regions, west, center, and east. So two levels, the trans lifters are allowed, and two levels, they're not. And if we're citing law here, whether it's a Canadian law or, as you said, the kangaroo court of the BC Human Rights Council, what's correct? Like, we can't suck and blow at the same time here.
Yeah.
They're sounding like they're just trying their best, as you said, David, to appease this EDI crowd and their personal views. And in the letter I got from BCPU, it does say that this isn't a question of subjective debate or personal views, but it is very much subjective. And it is about personal views. This is my personal view, and I don't stand alone in this anymore.
No.
And I'm allowed to express it without my words being called an attack. I'm a former police officer, and I know what an attack is. And me calling a man,
Yeah.
it's not an attack.
Well, Kathleen, for me, it's all about fairness. We literally want a level playing field, and that is not to exclude those people who identify as trans.
If we did create a third category, that would be so-called othering trans folks, and they should be included. That's the way they identify. But if Coach Linda Blade suggested this as the solution, who am I to question anything that comes out of her mouth? I have nothing but respect for her, her beliefs. And in fact, I've just ordered her book. So I look forward to diving into that. And I don't want anybody to be excluded. I love sport. I've tried a bunch of different sports over my adult life, and sport has always been such an incredibly welcoming environment for me. And I want trans folks to be welcomed in sport. I want us all to get along and participate together. I just don't want to pretend that a man is a woman and that's fair. I'm not a hater. I'm not a bigot. I'd love to have more people involved in sport because it's healthy and we all have to look after our health. But I'm not competing against a man, and I'm not going to be told not to say that.
And you know, Kathleen, you've got a big heart when you say you don't want anyone to be excluded, but it's not a two-way street because, as I referred to in the introduction, Jennifer Luther Thomas, the president of the BC Powerlifting Association, she said this in her response to you, quote, "As a BCPA and CPU member, you, Kathleen, have signed to abide by the organization's policies and bylaws. If you wish to withdraw your membership, you may do so per Article 2.01 of the BCPA bylaws," end quote. So basically she's saying, take a long walk off a short pier if you don't go along with our views on transanity.
I don't know. I don't know if that's her tone. And again, or if that was her
Looks like it
intent.
to me.
Having been at meets and volunteered at meets with Jen and spoken with her and exchanged messages with her on other matters, again, I'll repeat the respect I have for her in most areas. And she is a president of a volunteer board. And for the most part, the BC Powerlifting Union does a bang up job. And I've been honored to be a part of this organization. And that's why I thought it was okay for me to write a letter just expressing my views. But I guess it's not. And I don't want it to become personal. And I do have tons of respect for Jen. And maybe she just, or maybe she, the board, doesn't want to deal with somebody who's complaining about a contentious issue or somebody who, God forbid, is sticking up for April Hutchinson. But I am doing that. And I don't want to badmouth anybody or the board. I do want to say that nobody can compel my speech. And if that means I can't be a member of the BC Powerlifting Union, so be it. It's not going to take away my love of lifting and my love of sport and a healthy lifestyle.
Please go to transmadness.com. That's transmadness.com. Sign the petition. And if you can help us do this independent journalism, because you'll never see the mainstream media here covering something like this, kindly make a donation.